Today, we're living in an amazing piece of urban regeneration. Industrial wasteland turned boomtown. London Docklands is all about this, that, Canary Wharf and the city's newest financial area. I'm here to get under the skin of what it's really like to live in one of the country's fastest developing areas. West End, East End, we're all familiar with the cliches, but for the first time in London's history, the drift from east to west has been diverted. Few major cities have successfully developed eastwards, so the boom happening here is quite literally groundbreaking. In this programme, we'll take a look at some of the new developments along the river and some of the traditional parts of Dockland that you could choose to live and invest in. But first, to get the background story behind London's famous East End, river port and people, a visit to the museum in Docklands at West India Quay is a good place to start.
Docklands has its sort of origins really in the overcrowded nature of the river port in the 1790s. London had been a port from Roman times, from about 60 AD, and is still the second largest port in the nation today. By 1800, sheer level of overcrowding, the volume of ships, the problems of theft and pilferage and delay led London merchants to petition Parliament to enable them to build new trading docks to the east of the Tower of London. With the construction of the first wet dock in London, the West India Dock, which opened in 1802, you had the beginnings of what came to be called sort of Docklands. In the late 19th century, the phrase Docklands was actually coined to describe this huge sort of swathe of the eastern side of London, north and south of the river, that was dominated but both physically, economically and socially by these massive enclosed docks, the greatest docks anywhere in the world.
In the 1930s, 100,000 dockers were dependent on the Port of London for employment, and until the mid-60s it was still a massive cargo handler. The opening of new container ports spelled the end for London docks. By the end of the 70s, there was huge disinvestment, and almost all the docks had closed. In the 80s, the area had become a depressed industrial wasteland. It was the boom in IT that brought the opportunity for redevelopment in Docklands. The area was designated an enterprise zone offering tax breaks to both investors and developers. A massive wave of new housing, industries and architecture followed. Canary Wharf estate is actually 86 acres. Its name came about because many of the imports came from the Canary Islands. These days it's high-tech trading, not fruit and veg, that goes on in these buildings, where over 100,000 people work. It's a mini Manhattan. Britain's tallest building, Canary Wharf Tower, opened in 1991, and this brave statement of design and geographical commitment has now been joined by the two second tallest buildings in the UK, the HSBC headquarters and Citigroup Tower. The famous U-bend in the River Thames encloses the heart of Docklands. To its eastern extremity is City Airport, with London's financial city about the same distance westward. London's political and cultural centres based in the West End are about 20 minutes away on public transport. Canary Wharf Station sits under a giant glass domed roof. It was designed by Lord Foster. Built in what was originally old West India docks, it effectively lies underwater. Around 80,000 people pass through here a day. It's one of the biggest stations on the London Underground, and it's on the hyper-modern Jubilee Line extension. The Docklands Light Railway, otherwise known as the DLR, is the latest addition to the London Transport Network. It's an overground monorail system with driverless trains, so passengers can sit right at the front. There are over 30 stations so far, and 3 more extensions are planned to Woolwich Arsenal, Barking Reach and Stratford International. And within reach of the DLR, City Airport offers flights to major European cities. Opened in 1987, it's become another key element of local transport and infrastructure. There are no plans to extend the congestion zone to include Docklands, but traffic chaos often surrounds major roads and the Black Wall Tunnel. With so many people complaining about London transport, it's a wonder London's natural highway, the Thames, isn't used more often. The Thames Clipper has limited service, but the more people that use it, the better it should get. The river bus operates from around 6:30 in the morning till about 6:30 in the evening. It's a great way to get to work if its timetable and route suits your schedule. During the middle of the day, they only run once an hour. Well, that's getting around covered. Now I'm ready to roll out the Docklands experience and meet some of its local residents. Anna Stein lives in Limehouse, in one of these Mews houses, with her husband and 2 young children, 5-year-old Isaac and 15-month-old Eloise.
So how long have you actually lived here?
About 8 years I've lived here, and Mark's lived here about, I would say, 17 years.
Mark is your husband.
Yeah.
Why London Docklands?
We just love being by the river, the fresh air, the open space.
You'd never really think you're actually in London and near the financial city.
You wouldn't at all, no. Unless you go to Canary Wharf, where you really feel that you are more within where everyone's wearing their suits and the city workers. But no, you don't really.
I mean, there's obviously a lot of advantages. You're right beside the Thames. You've got stunning views, but there has to be a downside to living around here, whereas...
The population has increased. I mean, since I first lived here, it's incredible the developments that have come about and the people who've come into them. There aren't really enough facilities for such as health centres. I mean, I do know of a few cases of people who actually couldn't get accepted by doctors because they were full. There are schools, but there's a lack of schooling in general. I think that's quite a major consideration. I have a few friends who've moved out for exactly that reason, the schooling. I find sometimes it can be a little bit sterile.
That's a word that comes up quite a bit.
Especially just being in Canary Wharf, because those are your shopping areas. And I think that can be quite a... Also, the shops aren't exactly family shops. They're very geared towards people who work in the offices, corporate kind of shops. So you won't get children's clothes shops or the ordinary shops.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but the pros, if you don't have a family, outweigh the cons.
I think it's fantastic if you don't have a family. Yeah, I think it's a great place to be if you're living in London. There's lots going on here. There's lots of pubs, there's lots of places to eat. It's got a really nice, relaxed feel to it. And the air's fresh and clean.
Being away from the grimy centre of London life has its advantages, less pollution being one of them, but with spanking new comes a spotlessly clean kind of attitude.
Sterile is a word that comes up an awful lot when speaking about the Docklands. But although you do find green spots like this, you do get the feeling that it's very manicured, very symmetrical, very perfect. Very much like The Truman Show.
What are you looking at? The emphasis in Docklands has always been about creating a pleasant working environment with plenty of provision for public spaces. They're designed as casual meeting areas, even if you're always under the watchful eye of a security guard somewhere or other. Clean environments are generally thought to breed healthy bodies, so of course jogging's a popular pastime on all the river walkways. And if your idea of exercise is closer to nipping around the shops for a new outfit, there are 2 new shopping centres in Docklands. Shopping was considerably bolstered with the arrival of its second shopping centre, Jubilee Place. It should be a pleasure to shop here if you like the smarter high street chains. There's lots of space and no crowds at all unless you come at lunchtime when all the workers are out and about. Well, the ones that aren't jogging, that is, or eating. Because the same goes for eating and drinking. There are plenty of places to choose from during working hours. It's a different story later. And because it's all geared up towards the working community, there doesn't so far seem to be a market for late night drinking. Most bars don't want to trade past 11 o'clock. In keeping with the amenities in Docklands, residential buildings are by and large shiny and new too. Rising 33 stories above the quayside, this blade-shaped building might look like swanky new offices, but in fact, it's London's tallest private residential tower.
Now this is on the 17th floor of this building.
It's high.
It's very high, but we're only, don't forget, halfway up. But look at the view already that you can get. Looking out over the whole of London that way, and then obviously across to the Canary Wharf estate, which is literally...
Stone's throw.
Exactly, or indeed just a short walk across the footbridge. So you've got possibly one of the nicest commutes you could imagine if you work here in Canary Wharf. But of course, one of the great things about this building is you've got a hotel on the first 12 floors. So there's a 5-star international hotel, which means that you can get pretty much anything you want done for you whenever you want, 24 hours day and night.
That's incredible. I've never heard of that before. Would they organise dinner parties and that sort of thing for you as well?
You could have a 5-star chef and the full entourage up here, making the food, serving it, clearing it away while you just sit and talk to your friends.
That's unique. I don't think I've seen that before. It's 2-storey, is it?
So it's a real statement in terms of entertaining, in terms of where you live and so forth. And if you imagine the evening time, when the sun's setting over the Thames, and you're sipping your gin and tonic or whatever, the world probably seems like quite a nice place.
But this here, this actual, I don't know what you'd call it, kind of wing, would be unique.
Oh yes, absolutely. There's nothing quite like this space anywhere in this part of town.
It just adds so much light and so much, it just makes the place feel extremely roomy.
Yeah. Well, let's have a look upstairs.
There's even more.
Oh yes. So you come up and you're on the next floor up, so you're looking down now on the space we were just in. So you're looking down onto West India Quay and all the quayside restaurants and so forth that are there. Quite beautiful. You could even have a small trampoline there for your morning exercises.
If you wanted. And you've got this kind of living area here, which is, I mean, what would you call this?
I think it's...
Your landing? Well, I wouldn't. It's a bit plush to be a landing.
It might have been called landing in other places, but it's really another kind of space for chilling out, meeting people, you know. Maybe you could have a little kind of work area if you were so inclined. So, usable space, but leading into the master bedroom.
A very big bedroom. And yet again,
huge bedroom.
All the way through, you've got this window.
Well, you've got, I mean, because the building's got a big curve along its south aspect, you've got these lovely curved windows all the way along. So your bedroom basically has floor-to-ceiling views, you know, stretching out in front of you. So
all of natural light as well.
This is a little over 2,100 square feet.
Okay, so it brings me to the price tag and something like this.
1.295 million.
It's a big price tag.
Just a 10-minute train ride away from the financial heart of Docklands, prices are significantly lower. Limehouse Basin is one such area where regeneration is still only just beginning.
Paul, tell me about this development. It's Denmark Wharf, isn't it?
Yes, it's a development of mainly live-work units, plus there's also some residential here as well. And it's on the canal in Limehouse, and it starts really the regeneration of this area.
You mentioned the word, first of all, live-work. Is this a new term?
Relatively. It's been around for about the last 5 or 6 years, and it's designed for people who literally want to live and work from home rather than have a home and the additional cost of a separate office.
Is it not just a buzzword, or...?
No, it's no, it's not just a buzzword. There was a time where it was seen as a bit of a planning scam for developers to get more apartments into a building without actually saying that's what they were doing. But there is a definite demand now, certainly with young creative people who they don't need a separate office to actually be able to live and work from the same place. Your living room is oversized, if you like, so you can section off part of it, you know, as much or as little of it as you like.
So what sort of people are you talking about that would be live-to-work people?
Young creative professionals, new media, graphic designers, consultants of some sort.
In this particular building, tell me the type of apartments that you have here, what they consist of.
The mainstay of it is, as I say, the live-work units, which are just over 1,000 square feet, laid out mainly as one big living working space plus a bedroom and a kitchen, and then the rest of the building has some 2- and 3-bedroom apartments in it.
Is it a good investment area, do you think? With the regeneration of the area, do you think if you buy a property here it's going to be worth a lot more in years to come?
Well, the key, if you're ever going to get that kind of capital growth, is to really get in on an area in the first few buildings that are done there, because once that's happened, then prices just hike instantly because there's already an established level, whereas at the moment Denmark Wharf is pretty much the first thing here. So what happens then is that once this scheme goes, then new schemes start building on that. The area is one thing now, but in 5-6 years' time it could be something completely different.
Opposite the ill-fated Dome, New Province Wharf is a huge new riverside complex. It's about a 10-minute walk from Canary Wharf itself, and the overall scheme is intended to include offices, shops, a fitness centre and open public spaces. It might feel like you're pressing your nose up against a sweet shop window if you can't stretch to the £2 million price tag demanded by this penthouse, but there can be no harm in getting a few ideas. New Province Wharf was one of the first schemes to make a feature of the fitted balcony. Every penthouse has an outdoor hot tub or sauna. Around 70% of new homes built in London come with a balcony or a roof terrace, and that can add 5 to 10% to the value of your property. This show apartment is the next phase of the development, which would cost a more modest price of around £220,000. These studios haven't been built yet, but the Ontario Tower is due to rise 29 stories above the Thames and offer a range of small, convenient living spaces with state-of-the-art bathrooms and kitchens. Every inch of space is utilised. When you're not using this area as an office, the bed pulls down from the wall and it's all ready for you to crash out on. Coming up, more residents living in Docklands and a local estate agent from the Isle of Dogs.
You can't beat being in the country because living in the city can become quite claustrophobic. So why am I here? Well, Mudchute Farm is the biggest city farm in Europe and, believe it or believe it not, it's right in the Docklands.
Mudchute's most popular residents are the llama, but there's a whole host of animals, from horses, pigs, goats, ducks, cows, and of course, sheep.
I'm actually from the country myself and I couldn't agree with you more. It's quite incredible that in the Docklands you've 32 acres of this. Could be anywhere.
Originally a piece of derelict land which was earmarked for development, local people campaigned to secure it as a people's park. Facilities of the farm include a cafe, riding school, nature trail, shop and education centre. The city farm is held dear to many of the local residents, particularly those that have grown up in the area and have seen the dramatic changes in recent years. I'm off to meet one of them. She's Jean Brown, and this is her local, a floating pub on Millwall Inner Dock.
I've lived here all my life, a lot of years, over 40. That's all I'm prepared to say. The flat that I live in actually overlooks the Thames, and I've got to be like, I love it. And no matter how many times they say to me about moving, I will not give up my flat. I don't want to move out of it. I love it there. I love watching the barges coming up the river. Most of the people I know don't own their houses. We all live in council or private housing trust. They're just not building the properties for local people. We're losing a lot of our locals. Every bit of land that we've got has been built on, and sort of like $500,000 up. So where are the children going to play? We've got one park round this side of the island, we've got the Mudchute Farm, and then round the other side of the island, you've only got one big park there. DLR has been a bonus for us, actually getting off and on the island, because at one time we had 2 bridges, which when they went up, you were stranded. I mean, literally stranded here. You couldn't get off or on. Because it is friendly. You get your mixture from Canary Wharf, your builders, your painters, decorators, so on. And it comes in handy sometimes to know these people.
So that's a long-standing locals view. But what of the migrants to the area? When Docklands became his place of work, Tim Archer took to the area and made it his home.
Tim, you've spent most of your working life in the London Docklands. How much has it changed over the last couple of years?
I mean, I've lived here about 5 years now, and when I first moved into the area, it was up and coming, as it were. But I suppose the big difference, or the way I describe the big difference, is I remember a mate coming round when I first moved in on a Saturday night. We were going to go out for a few beers. We went to Canary Wharf, and there was literally nothing open apart from one, old pub where we sat and kind of, drank the night away. Whereas now, like on a Saturday night, spot for choice.
Why did you move here in the first place? Was it just purely because of work, or was it a choice?
It was a conscious choice. I mean, I worked in the city at the time, and I wanted to be somewhere near there in terms of commuting. But also, I kind of knew what I wanted, which was a kind of fairly modern, place to live, somewhere I could park the car. Other places I looked at were either really expensive, a longer commute, or just didn't have the kind of, parking access and all that kind of simple stuff. So I went for somewhere that was kind of clean, relatively good value, and near to where I wanted to work.
Now, were you a first-time buyer?
That's right, yeah. When I bought here 5 years ago, literally first-time buyer, bought myself a flat on the Isle of Dogs. It's been a good investment so far.
Yeah, I mean, when you went to buy the place originally, you must have... I mean, it wasn't cheap, I'd say. Or correct me, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, it was good value, I think, relative to a lot of other places. But literally, within months, I saw similar properties going up for sale for slightly more than what I'd paid for it. And it's just been a constant rise ever since.
And is that a trend here, that prices seem to be going up?
Very much so, I think. I think as the place has developed, I mean, there's been a lot of new building as well, but effectively it's attracting more and more young professionals in, which is keeping the prices moving up. I mean, to the extent I've been able to actually move and buy another place around the corner and rent out the first place, and I'm actually making by renting it out as well. I like the fact that actually where I live has got a real sense of a community. So it's not just the modern apartments, you've actually got kind of people that lived here all their life. And it has got that sense of, sense of society around it. Once you scratch below the surface, there's all sorts of organisations and social clubs and people that just know each other. And there's a real kind of, tapestry, if you like, of different people all living kind of next door to each other.
How would you sum up London Docklands?
I'd say it's vibrant, it's kind of easy to get to, and it's up and come, but it's also got a lot more potential.
Rumour has it, the Isle of Dogs was named by Henry VIII, who kept his dogs there. He sent his boats over to fetch them and bring them to his palace in Greenwich whenever he fancied a spot of hunting. As late as the 18th century, the only two buildings on the island were a chapel and a pub. Many international celebs have penthouses on the Isle of Dogs, so you could find yourself rubbing shoulders with the likes of Cher or even Robert De Niro. It's a blend of restored warehouses, low-cost tower blocks, contemporary housing and office complexes. It's already established as London's newest business district. It's fast becoming a genuine quarter in its own right because of its prime location right opposite Canary Wharf. It's not all new though. If you hunt around, there are a few streets left with original terraced houses.
This is Cahir Street. It's one of the oldest roads on the island. The houses here were built at the turn of the last century for the dockers who actually worked in and around the area and on the Thames. These are now owned by mostly private people who actually work in and around the area or commute into the city or work in Canary Wharf, because from here the transport links are very, very good. With the DLR and the Jubilee line coming right through here, you're only a short distance from the Blackhorn or the High Tunnels and the A13 going out to Essex. It's becoming a very affluent area with all the major banks and building societies coming here. There's not many downsides to the area. The transport links in the evening are not great. There's only one night bus. Not much nightlife as well in the area, and a lot of people actually still go into the West End or into Essex and Kent. 5 years ago, the only people that were here at weekends were estate agents. Most people actually went home at the weekend. The nice thing with houses, obviously being freehold, that you don't pay service charges and you can pretty much do exactly what you want and you can make them just how you like them. A typical house in this road would fetch just below the stamp duty threshold, which is £250,000 for a typical 2 up, 2 down. That is the place to invest. There is still a lot of money to be made in this area. I don't think the island as a whole has actually seen its potential yet.
And here's a guide to average prices in Docklands and some other local information to help you settle in the area.
The success of the Docklands really has exceeded people's expectations, and the success of Canary Wharf has caught an awful lot of people by surprise. No longer is it the type of place that you're virtually exiled off to work in. Its infrastructure seems to have taken a lot closer to the city, and it really has become the cool, modern urban environment that you'd want to live in. It may not be perfect for family and children just yet, but if you're a wealthy young bachelor like myself, I wish, you really do have an awful lot of choice.